What are the steps involved in succession planning? By the end of this video, I'm going to demystify this idea of succession planning and break it down into bite-sizable steps and chunks that you can actually go take action on. What we found is that most owners, they're not building a business. They're kind of building a prison. And if you're thinking about passing a business to your kids or selling it to competitors or strategic buyers, you need to know that those strategies are completely different. So let's dive in. When we're thinking about through the different steps of succession planning, really the first thing we need to do is think, why are we doing this in the first place? Well, I think it's kind of hidden in the word, succession planning. There's that word rooted in there called success. We want our business to be a success, not just today in creating a paycheck, not just today in creating value, but long-term legacy from generation to generation. The truth is the odds are against you. Only 4% of businesses see their 10th birthday. Only 12% of those 4 businesses live through the second generation, and only 30% of the 12 of the 4 make it through the third. So the odds are towering against you. But we've got to ask the question, why? I don't think it's about magic. I don't think it's about luck. I think it's about preparation. And so when we're thinking about succession, success is found in preparation. One of the most powerful stories I think about this idea of preparation involves a story of humility. I had a dear friend named Dan Miller. He has since passed, and he wrote the book 48 Days to the Work You Love, and he's got a New York Times bestseller. I mean, this guy had just influence after influence, and I ended up going to a seminar that he was teaching, and it was a seminar about teaching business coaches how to coach. And so he's part of where I learned this business from. And after I got done, a couple years later, Dan reached back out and he said, "Hey, I want to hire you." I was like, "Well, but you taught me." He's like, "I know, but I want to hire you because how you've specified in your business, I could actually use that help." And Dan submitted himself, even though at that time he was in his 70s, he submitted himself to my leadership and to my oversight. It was the teacher hiring the student at that point. And when he put himself in a position of humility to receive, it actually started to create real clarity around this idea of succession planning. Because little did we know that he wouldn't live much longer. And that he had this powerful life at the end of his life because he humbled himself to actually create a plan. All right, so you're here because you're making at least a soft commitment to this idea of succession planning. You want this thing to succeed, you want to exit, you want to transition, you want to move it on to somebody else. But we've got to think of ourselves, what are those steps to create that plan? In creating those steps, we've got to look at the goal. What is your ultimate outcome of succession planning? Too many people just run straight into this and go, I need to exit, I need to transition, I need to do this stuff, without ever stopping and going, hey, what do you want out of this? Do you want a big chunk of money? Is that what you're going for? And that's fine if that's what you want to articulate. Do you want your kids to be able to run this? Is that a goal that you have? Do you want somebody else to be able to run it like you? Do you want to stay involved at a high level but not day to day? What does this look like for you? I would actually recommend you take out a scratch sheet of paper and just write it down. Here's what it looks like. And then sometime in the next couple of days, sit with the people you love and talk to them about it. Again, use wisdom and discretion anytime you talk about this. You need to talk to the right people. This is not something that you just want to sort of blabber about to everybody who will listen. You've got to use wisdom and discretion when you're talking about succession and exit. Let's break down your opportunities for exit in a couple of chunks. First option is just work forever. Now, I will tell you that you will die. I know that's a little bit depressing to think about, but the reality is death, taxes, and more taxes, those are pretty much guaranteed throughout. And I would even add a third element to that, and that is succession planning. You do have a succession planning built in. Every business transitions just by statistics. And the good news is if you live in the United States, they have a succession plan for you. It's just very laborious and very expensive. I don't recommend it. And so instead, let's build your own succession plan, including your estate planning, your business law, and all of that stuff that comes around. So your first option is just work forever, but I don't recommend that. The second option is that you can actually transition to family. That can be a goal of yours. And so you can think of these children or these cousins or they extended family, whatever that looks like to be able to transition. And even in that, I would articulate why do you want to transition? I think your why in that is very important in helping other people understand the purpose of your succession or transition to begin with. And a third big chunk when people are thinking through transition or succession is this idea of selling. So there are a lot of different people you could sell to. You could sell to a competitor. You could sell to a strategic buyer that's maybe outside of your market. You could sell to somebody who's just looking to get into business. There are a variety of different buyers that are out there, and brokers and M&A consultants are great connectors for those opportunities that are out there. And they're also really good at telling you if your business is transferable if it's sellable to an outside market. One little side note about selling to the outside market is it's really based on your EBITDA number, and that stands for earnings before interest, tax, depreciation, amortization. It's basically what we call a recasted financial statement, or it's your net income with add backs and adjustments. To add back, if you bought a car through the business, but the buyer wouldn't do that, you add that back. So it'll really help you. But the reality is you've got to look through that and what they call a fair market multiple. And so every industry, every business type has what they call a range of multiples. It might be between 0.5 and 3, 1.5 and 5, 5 and 10. There's a variety of different multiples. And the truth is, you don't decide what your multiple is. The market decides, but you can influence that multiple. So when you're thinking about a strategic buyer, somebody from the outside coming to buy your business, that's really going to be dependent on a lot of numbers, as is a sell to anybody else internally, to your employees or to family. So just understand there is calculation involved, but it does help for you to know, what do you want to do this? Work forever, transition to people you know and love, or sell to the outside market? I want to go back and tell you a story about the work forever crowd. We get a lot of this where people will come to us and they'll basically say, I'm just going to keep working. I'm just going to keep working, keep working. Well, the reality is I'm actually not against that. I don't know that there's much theology in place for a healthy retirement. I've just seen too many people that go into retirement and then life just kind of gets worse and worse really, really quickly. Why? They don't have a lot of purpose to wake up to. I like the idea of work continuing, but work starting to modulate in a different way. Here's the way we phrase it. Work because you want to and not because you have to. That's where we ultimately want to get you to. Now with this, here's what we also see, and it's this work myth, this work forever myth. And here's how it goes. Hey, I'm just going to keep working. And I'm going to keep doing this thing. I'm not going to worry about it. I'm just going to hire employees that just come and go, come and go. And then there's going to come a time. But here's what you can't control. When you're 32 and 43 and maybe 51, you're still in usually pretty good health. But when you get into your 60s and 70s and 80s, there's a lot of things that can go wrong. That's why when you walk into a doctor's office, most of the folks have gray hair in there. And the reality is, it's not that graying is wrong. It's not that getting old is wrong. It's that we think we can work as hard as we can work for 30 or 40 years and then rest as hard as we can rest for the rest of that time. When in reality, we were created to create. I think there's a healthy bent for us continuing to work to some degree while we're working because we want to and we don't have to. So again, that's a little side note for you who might think, well, I'm just going to work forever. I'd rather you live some life now while you're working, so that you can live life while you're working later on as well. All right, so here are a couple more really practical steps, I think, for you. And this is going to involve a scratch sheet of paper, a pen, and a timer. Here it is. You ready? I want you to write down these 4 words: marketing, sales, operations, administration, and accounting. These are the 4 core systems of every single business. And when they're present in the business and when the processes are defined and documented, there is clarity all around. When those processes are locked up in the heads of a few people, your business is not very transferable at that point. And we want to make this a business that runs and grows with or without you. So let's go through this exercise. You ready? Start with marketing. What are all the processes that you can think of that are aligned to the marketing vertical? Updating your website, advertising materials, social media channel outreach, face-to-face. In fact, you can think of marketing in 2 forms: air support and ground game. Most businesses are going to work on the ground game to get new business. There are some businesses that invest very heavily. Think about these billboard law firms or whatever. They invest in what we call air support, lots of billboards, television commercials, those sorts of things. In order to get your primary lead off of air support, you have to spend a lot of ad money. So just remember that. Your ground game is a more efficient spend to get the clients that you want, unless you absolutely have to scale at that point. Think about your marketing and all the elements it takes to properly outreach your business to the community. From there, we need to go into the sales vertical and write down all the little nitpicky systems and processes that built within sales. How do we communicate our sales proposition to people? How do we set up appointments? How do we follow up? How do we do estimating, bidding, proposals, whatever it might take? Every single one of those needs to have a process. Number 3 is the operations. This is basically where you produce. This is where you deliver the product and the service that you're out there delivering. And so what we want to do is write down all the elements. Oh my gosh, Scott, this would take forever. Yeah, start. And so if you can start for 5, 10, 15 minutes now, it'll take a lot shorter the next time. And I think you'll be surprised at how little time it will take for you to be able to dramatically map out the process in your business. Same holds true for administration and accounting. Things like payroll, payables, receivables, insurance certificates, renewing licenses, all of that stuff has to be done on a regular basis. Why not document it so other people can get it? And now when we go look at the idea of transition, people have something to look at so that when you go to sell your business, you're not selling you. You're not selling a gig. I don't want to buy you. What I want to buy is something that I can see, hold, touch, maneuver, and most importantly, train and equip. Because if I'm going to come buy your business, I want to train and equip other people to run and grow the business with or without me. It dawned on me as I was talking to you about people just then that I've got an incredibly powerful video for you to actually go onboard new hires and train new hires. See, the value of the transferable asset of your business is dependent on the people, and the value of your people is dependent on how you hire and train and onboard those people. So make sure you click on that video and make time to go watch it and start to implement. My name's Scott Beebe. We work with business owners just like you between 3 and 100 employees to liberate you from chaos so that you can make time for the things that matter most.